on WFLA Now. Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
Today, we're talking about how Tampa Bay is a hotbed for female entrepreneurs. And that doesn't come without tremendous support and mentorship. And our guest today is Tampa's First Lady and proud Tampa native, Ana Cruz. Ana, it is so great to see you.
You as well. Thank you for having me on, Gail. I appreciate it.
So before we talk about how you mentor, especially women in the Hispanic community, let's talk a little bit about you and your incredible career journey and how you have helped kind of bridge the divide between government and businesses.
Certainly. You know, my career actually really started very young and in campaigning and on campaigns. And it's a funny story, and I'll make it quick. I was working when I was 15 at a shoe store in South Tampa. You may remember it, Joy's Shoe Salon in Carriage Trade Plaza. And the mayor at the time was Sandy Friedman, and she would come into the store. And I thought it was so cool. She was the mayor at the time that I could serve the mayor of Tampa Diet Cokes. And she ends up opening up her re-election headquarters right next door. And I went and volunteered. And that's where I met Bob Buckhorn. Election night rolls around, and I was there as a volunteer. And it's lights, and it's cameras, and it's, supporters. And it was so exciting. And I was like, I want to be a part of this. And I was very young at that time, and I made a very lengthy career out of running campaigns for a living that naturally transcended into lobbying and being an advocate for my clients and bridging that divide between businesses and government and helping them understand how to maneuver through the governmental process. And, I liken it to individuals, and I tell individuals, they're like, well, what do you do? I really don't understand what it is that you do. I said, listen, I would never advocate for somebody to represent themselves in court, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't really understand that process. And a lot of what I do is very similar. You really, you're an expert at the inner workings of government, whether it be at the local level, the state level, and the federal level.
I want to talk about Tampa specifically and how the city has evolved to become so supportive over the years about helping people launch small businesses, especially female entrepreneurs, which I mentioned earlier. I mean, we're a hotbed here. And a lot of people don't realize, but I know you know this well, just like I do, when Tampa was founded, it was the women of Ybor City, the Italians, the Spaniards, and the Cubans
Absolutely.
that came together. So the mindset for women to step in and build up was kind of here from the insemination.
Absolutely. And I think that that's very reflective today in who we are as a community. You have women CEOs, numerous women that run large companies. We have a female mayor. We have, the first female chief of police. But you're absolutely right, Gail. It was women early on that really helped form that base that which we draw upon every day.
Speaking of mentorship, I want to bring in our very talented producer, Sarah Smith, who is really the backbone of a lot of what we do. And she started off as an intern with us and has risen up the ranks to be a real key player in the role. And she can talk about it from her perspective. And I want you to talk about it from your perspective, Anna, about the importance of women mentoring other women. It's what I live, and I don't want to die anytime soon, but it's what I live and die by.
I
do think it's the most important thing as a female that you can do.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that if we walk away at the end of our careers not having done that, shame on us. I think there's a saying, there's a special place in HELL for women who don't help other women.
Right.
And it's incredibly important. People showed me how to do things right and mentored me along the way. It was men in large part that helped me. But I feel a real onus and a personal draw to ensure that I help other young women through this process. It doesn't necessarily have to be through the process or the profession that I do, but helping women understand their worth when they're going and they're afraid to ask for a raise, and they want to ask for a small incremental raise. I'm like, no, you ask for double what you think that you're worth, because you are worth way more than you think that you're worth.
Well, and I think back to what you said is, for me, I came into this industry with no prior knowledge. And you mentioned when I was an intern, Gail was actually basically my mentor when I came into it. And you said an onus too, and I'm just so blessed to have you as that figure in my life, and as an intern, and then now working here. And for me, it's played a pivotal role in who I've become today. And I think that just goes back to you. For any young person watching this, you got to find somebody who's willing to pour into you and wants to see you succeed.
Yeah. You can change people's lives.
Yeah, change people's lives. And then on the receiving end, just to give you the props that you deserve, Sarah, is that you can help people and you can guide them along the way, but it does take somebody that receives it and really takes it to the next level, that really makes it like all of that investment and all of that time is more than worth it, because the show wouldn't be where it is today if not for that. And so, Anna, as you've helped people along the way, you mentioned mindset as one of the greatest hurdles. I don't think as women that we know our worth. I don't think that we're used to asking for things. I started off in a male-dominant industry back in the late 80s and had to convince my news director, Matt Carmack, to let me keep my last name Guayardo. We dropped about 5 vowels, but that was the compromise. But what do you think are some major hurdles for women as they try to become entrepreneurs and try to pave their way?
Again, it goes back to self-worth. I think that women really don't understand the power that they harness relative to our, what we bring to the table. Also, from a consumer standpoint, what women purchase and what they buy, the services that they seek out. If you're on the retail side, or if you're targeting women to purchase consumer goods and services. But let's get back to, again, your self-worth and really understanding, what it is that your counterparts are making. I think that that's incredibly important for you to be knowledgeable and to try to really understand what is the guy in the same position making that I'm making, and demand that you make equal or more. And that's really kind of like the basis of where you really start. A lot of women just don't know where to start when it comes to, okay, now I have my first client. How much do I charge them? Do I charge them by the hour, or do I charge them monthly? And I can't tell you how many young women I have walked through that exact process. And it's so fundamental for them to get started with an understanding of, hey, here's what you're worth, and you build from there.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, I think, what do you think it's going to take for women to see their self-worth? Do you think that's going to come from having that mentors or something else? Like, what do you think?
I think it's a mix of both. It's a mix of having mentors, and it's also it's seeing themselves and other people that are at that level, right? That are at that the pinnacle of whomever they see as the pinnacle of that position or of that industry, as a female leading that industry. And I think that we're seeing that more and more, but certainly not enough. Also reflective in government, men far way out women as in relative to representation, and women want to see women, they want to see themselves
right
in leadership.
Right, without a doubt. Speaking of women in leadership, your partner, our mayor, Mayor Jane Castor, has been just a trailblazer in the Tampa Bay area, the first female police chief, really made a mark for herself, even, when the RNC was in Tampa, handing out water to protesters, keeping the calm, during the pandemic, helping small businesses stay alive. It does take, and even circling back to women getting into business, it does take support from city leaders. And it has been really incredible to meet women along the way that turn to me and say, hey, look, the Tampa Chamber of Commerce did this XYZ. The city actually cares about me opening shop. And,
Absolutely.
that matters. The fabric of the community is what makes a tremendous difference.
Without a doubt. And, it's, and I said it earlier today, when we were hit by COVID and so many businesses had to shutter their doors, and we had, it was so traumatic for so many. But the city, they came up with a plan. Okay, we know that our restaurants need relief. People, they were some of the hardest hit. And so the city came up with a campaign.
Lift Up Local.
Thank you, Lift Up Local. And it allowed them to open their footprints and allowed them to spread out onto the sidewalks so that people could remain 6 feet from one another, be outside. And it really allowed those businesses to stay open, to employ their employees and to provide services for the community. And it made a huge difference. And again, it's innovative thinking, but it's also caring about your community enough to say, okay, we're going to find a solution for this, because we know that you are the backbone to our community and we want you to stay open. We need you to stay open.
And people don't realize that small businesses are at the core of your community thriving economically. Like, you always think it's the big dog, the big box store, but that's really not the case. It's the mom and pops that keep people employed. And when I was reading at the statistics, that the Census Bureau put out, female-owned businesses were employing like close to 100,000 people. I mean, this is what creates jobs during hardship. Switching gears, popcorning a bit, as we like to call it. Let's talk about your personal health journey, because the Bloom Health Club and Bloom, the nationally and globally syndicated show that you were on that will air Wednesday of this coming week. We talked a little bit about your personal health journey and how that has changed you.
It really has. I grew up a morbidly obese child, bad genes coupled with bad eating habits. My parents were very young when they had me. I come from a Hispanic household, and, healthy food to us was arroz con, frijoles, rice and beans and starch and starch and starch. And so, it really took a toll on my body physically. At the heaviest, I was 331 pounds. I could not fit into an airline seat. And it really not just profoundly affected, my physical being, but your emotional being as well. And I remember it was at this point in my life, I was doing a campaign, and one of the campaign managers tells me it was a national presidential campaign, and he said, "We want you to come on the road with us." And I was at my heaviest at that time, and I thought, "There's no way that I can do it. I can't fit on an airline seat with these guys to go all over the country and campaign." And I had a gastric bypass, lost 150 pounds. I've kept it off for 24 years. A lot of it, a lot of it is what you put in your mouth, to be honest with you. Just ensuring that what I was putting in my mouth was healthy. And now I take Wegovy, and I will tell you that it keeps me at the weight that I need to be kept at, and that I want to be kept at, rather. But it also takes away that chatter and that constant kind of hunger that you still fight with. Food is an addiction. And I really feel that, a lot of people don't understand that. They say, how could you become 331 pounds, right? I'm a small frame human being. And food is because it was an addiction for me. And being able to have a new drug like Wegovy or Ozempic or Mounjaro that's out there is really revolutionized weight loss for individuals. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of the side benefits of individuals being on those medications. And also for me personally, it has it's really been able to allow me to focus on other things other than that constant hunger or that constant food chatter in my head all the time.
Yeah, we had actually it's going to air tomorrow on WFLA at 2 p.m. where we have an Ask the Doctor. And this, physician was saying that these weight loss drugs, which, they were originally for diabetes, they were meant for the long term. And there
Absolutely.
are a lot of women that could benefit when it comes to heart disease,
Yes.
Alzheimer's. There's a lot of spin-offs that we're starting to understand the
Yes.
benefits of these
Absolutely.
drugs. And even if you're not taking it, titrating up, but you just, are you staying like on a maintenance
Yes.
of it now?
Yes, I'm on a maintenance now. And you're right. They're meant for you to be able to take for the rest of your life if you need to.
Right.
And you'll have some older physicians that are so old school that they're like, no, you don't need it. You just need to walk, or you just need, when you turn 50, I think everything changes. And, if you're somebody that's postmenopausal and your body begins to change and you begin to gain weight, and it's incredibly difficult to get it off, or you've been just a heavier person for your entire life, like there is hope. You just can't be afraid of it, right? And if you're older, if you see an older physician that's like, no, you can, I'm not going to give that to you. You're only 20 pounds overweight. You're only 25 pounds overweight. Go talk to another doctor, because there are a lot of physicians out there that really, really believe in these class of drugs. They've been tested. They've been tried.
Yeah, they've been around for a
They've been
really
around
long
forever,
time.
yeah.
They just keep getting better with
Absolutely.
Yeah, with the generations of them that continue to come out. How would you say that the weight loss impacted you on a personal level?
Gosh, how has it not impacted me on a personal level? In so many ways, your self-confidence is shaken to its core. Without a doubt, it really does a number on your mental health, and your self-worth and confidence. People think that you're lazy, or they think that that you're not smart, or that that there's so many negative connotations that come with being obese or even slightly overweight. And so for me, it was tough. I was 244 pounds in 6th grade. It was not easy being me. But you know what? I had parents that loved me and told me that there wasn't anything that I couldn't do, and so I did it. It took me quite a while, and it also takes a toll on you, because you don't date like normal people do. Nobody wants to date somebody that's 331 pounds. So I was a late bloomer, pun intended.
We like that here on Bloom. You were really sweet on Bloom on our headquartered here in Tampa, Florida, the syndicated version of the podcast and the streaming platform. To mention my husband, who is like one of the nicest guys. You said that you met him when you were young, and that he was always very kind to you. And I will say that when he saw you for the first time in so many years, we were all at Epic Chef at the Epicurean.
Oh, yes.
And I had to tell him and tug his shirt like 5 or 6 times, "That's Ana. That's Ana." And he just could not put 2 and 2 together, because, he remembered you as a child, but, you're, and I didn't know the backstory until you told me, of how, he was one of the kids that was really nice to you at school. I didn't know. And I would have never have, since I didn't know you back then, when you come in with this presence and this confidence and everything, it's almost like you have evolved into somebody new, but I'm sure you have a lot of your still your humble qualities that you carry with you, no matter with the weight or without the weight.
Without a doubt. I mean, in my head, I am still that chubby girl. I think that it's something that no matter how hard you work on, it's always going to be there. It was there for so long for me. Having been morbidly obese as a child and long into my adulthood. I'm always going to have that insecure feeling about me. But back to your husband, it's very few and very, very few and far between were young guys in high school that were nice to you when you're that heavy. And Mark was one of them. I could probably count on one hand, how many guys that were like that.
That's so nice of you to say. And he's still the nicest guy ever. And being the father of 4 daughters and playing a hand in raising them, he always shows that compassion. So I really appreciate you saying that. And he's a huge fan of yours as well. And so excited to see, how you're thriving. I will definitely do that. So how is it being, the Tampa's first lady?
Well, initially it was really very exciting. I'm so proud of my partner, Jane. I got to tell you that her character is the best part about her. She, to her core, is the most genuine, righteous human beings I know. She really is. And it was very exciting. For the first year was like a whirlwind. We did every event that you could possibly ever imagine. And then COVID hit. And, people were saying, how's she doing? I'm like, she was built for this. This is where she thrives, right? And it has been quite a journey. People have been so gracious and so kind. As an openly gay couple, in government and in politics, really as an elected official for her, people feel like they can hurl insults or they can hurl applause at you and be open with you about it. But we have not one time ever experienced any negativity toward us, to our faces, right? And I think that goes also to who we are as a community, right? We're so diverse and we're so accepting, and it's why companies want to be here and why they want to relocate to Tampa, because their employees want to see themselves in the community that they live in, and it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful to watch her, be able to continue Tampa's progress and turn our city into the greatest place to live. She says we have the most incredible city in the world, and we do.
We do. As a native like you are, I mean, it's mind blowing to see how the city has evolved. And I will say, and Mayor Castor was on the show not too long ago, and she and I had the chance to talk about you kind of rising through the ranks, and it's so nice and refreshing to hear that the city is so supportive and diverse, because that is so important, like with everything that you had to say. And I think too, at least this is from my vantage point, I could be totally wrong and with my head in the sand, but it always seems like we work as a bipartisan community. Yes, we really do. From both sides, and it's a shining example. I said it, my husband and I were in Argentina on a business trip, and people were getting political, and I just politely said, it's really interesting. I come from a city where people can come together and great minds can come together, and at the end of the day, progress is made. And Absolutely. That's all you can ever ask for, is that people can have their belief system, but that they can come together when it's time to get the job done. And I think that's just another thing that I like to boast with Tampa about. I think it's incredible.
And it's critical, right? You don't get anything done with hard partisan stances, and it's an obstacle. It becomes an obstruction. We see it in other forms of government all the time. We see it in other countries happen all the time, and unfortunately, we see it in our own country happen a lot.
Right.
But we are fortunate, and the collaboration that our cities and counties have with one another, and even within our police departments and our sheriff, and electeds and non-electeds working together to solve big issues. We can't progress without it.
Yeah, and I even saw Mayor Castor for the very first inaugural State of the Union for Tampa General Hospital, and to hear the president, John Corus, get up and talk about her and how she stepped up and he stepped up when it came to the times of COVID, and you look at where the hospital that, quite frankly, I was born at,
Me too. Yeah.
And you see where that's come over. So you've got this public-private partnership,
Yes.
this synergy, I should say synergy, not partnership, that really does matter. I mean, you look at the airport with Joe Lopano and what all these key players coming in and making a difference of how our city has evolved.
It's community first. They really lead with that belief that that we all need one another, and that we have a very special place in Tampa Bay, and it's up to them, to work together so that those big things can happen. Look at USF and TGH's relationship and what that has brought to fruition. It's this thriving downtown medical school that
It's unbelievable.
It's
I mean, you took what was a commuter school when you and I were growing up, and now it's like state of the art. I think nursing is number 10 in the nation, maybe probably higher by now. That's an old stat. But again, it just keeps bubbling and bubbling, and it is all these great people coming to the center. And I know, you're at all of these events. You are part of the fabric of the community. You see this happen. Do you have any questions for Anna?
I was just going to make a comment and say how it's brought so much opportunity to Tampa.
Without a doubt.
For me, I didn't grow up here. I've only been here for 2.5 years. And so coming from like a smaller town where there was a little bit less opportunity, and then coming here where there's a lot more opportunity, it's given a lot of young people to just grow.
Absolutely. I see more young people. We used to be able to walk into a room and know everybody, right, Gail?
Right.
I mean, we grew up with half of them, or we've done business with the other half. But nowadays, it's very different, and it's very exciting to see folks your age, Sarah, that are so engaged and enjoying our city and working in our city, creating a life for themselves and a family, and just really, enjoying, what Tampa is today.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I know, I love it.
I do
Well, we're
too.
glad you're here. We hope you stay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, Anna, it's been so great having an extended conversation with you. And, please give my best to the mayor. We love her and such a staple in the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you,
what
Anna.
you do.
What
Thank
an
you.
honor to talk to you.
You too.